So from magnanimity we move towards humility. Humility is the second specific virtue of leaders. Magnanimity is about striving for great things. Humility is about living in the truth and serving others. Like magnanimity that has two dimensions, contemplation and action, humility also has two dimensions. Humility is self-knowledge and it is service. And this is the same virtue in the end of the day, but this same virtue has two very, very clear different aspects. One is self-knowledge. What do we mean by self-knowledge? We say that humble people are people who live in the truth about themselves. What is the truth about ourselves? Well, the basic truth about ourselves is that we are created human beings. We are created human beings. We have a nature. Natura means born with. We have a nature. We are born with certain things, and we must not reinvent ourselves. We must not recreate ourselves. We must not re-engender ourselves. We have a nature that is a gift to us, and to deny this is an incredible act of pride. It is the maximum of human pride, is to say, I am God, and I engender myself any moment of my life, and I decide about who I am at any moment of my life, and I rebuild my nature because there is no human nature at all. I am the God of myself. I have created myself. This is a state of our civilization. Our civilization is based on an incredible sin of pride, which is the denial of our createdness. We're created. We have a nature that is objective, and we have to live according to this human nature of ours. This is the basic truth. I call this metaphysical humility, because it has to do with where do we come from. We're created. Creation is a metaphysical concept. It's a concept of metaphysics. We're not going to enter into metaphysical details here, but creation has to do with metaphysics. Where does the world come from? Where does being come from? What is being? What it means to be created. So these are metaphysical things, so we can speak about metaphysical humility as the foundation of humility. People who don't understand that they are created, they are totally outside the scope of humility because they don't understand a very basic thing, which is that they do not exist at all. They are because God wants them to be. Many people want autonomy. They speak about being autonomous. They speak about being themselves. They don't understand that they are not. They are because another one has decided that they are going to be. They are not. You and me, we're not. By ourselves, we are not. We are maintaining being all the time by God. At any second of our existence, God is maintaining us into being. If He stopped thinking about us and He goes to the kitchen to drink some vodka, we are transformed. We would be transformed into non-being at the very moment. So He has to think about you and me at any moment because He created us out of nothing. So only this metaphysical vision of life helps us understand what true humility is about. If that you are not, you are because someone else is keeping you in being and wants you to be. Someone is all the time, in a way, creating you. Because the action of maintaining it in being human beings is the same, requires the same power as the action of creation itself. These are metaphysical notions. I understand for many people this is very new. But for people who have studied metaphysics, these things are not new, and these things are incredibly nice. Because we understand that we are not alone. You're not alone. You are a project, and in the heart of someone that is God, that is a Father, and that is Almighty. And this is powerful. You're not alone. Even if you're crazy, even if you have a lot of flaws and mistakes, you're not alone. This is basic humility. Awareness of our createdness. The second level of humility is awareness of our flaws. It's awareness of our sinfulness. Awareness that there is something in us that is not working well. There is the original sin, as Christians and Jews are used to say, the original sin. There are things that are not working well. I mean, the ancient Greek, they knew about that thing that is not working well in us. But they didn't know where that was coming from. But Aristotle speaks a lot about these things that goes against reason, that is inside his heart. So the experience of humanity is that there is something in us that doesn't work well. There is a tendency towards egotism, towards egoism, towards whatever it is, selfishness, and these things are in the hearts of each and every human being. It's the experience of humanity in the dawn of time. You don't need to be a Christian or a Jew to understand those things. It is a fact. Unfortunately, with the French philosopher Rousseau, things are not so simple for many people, because Rousseau said there is no original sin, it's a myth. There is no problem in human beings. The problem is only in society. You have to look for an ideology, a system that will bring peace on earth. And he was the father of ideology. Because people begin to think that we don't need to fight in order to become better people because we are perfect. There is no sinfulness in a human being. We are perfect. Evil is purely social. It's not individual. It's not personal. It's social, said Rousseau. So evil can be destroyed by a system, an ideology, by politics. So the aim of our life is to find a political system that will destroy that social evil. And then we will have peace on earth and the kingdom of God on earth. Well, we had the opposite. That's the problem. We had the opposite. It's always the same thing. When you make a big mistake at the beginning, well, the consequences are enormous. Then you have the Bolsheviks who came and said, well, you're right, Rousseau. There is no evil in human beings. The only evil is social. And we have been following your instructions, and we've been finding the system. It's called Marxism. Let's do it. Well, we did it. 100 million people died out of that. We did it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because at the beginning, there is a mistake. An anthropological mistake that we call naturalism. Naturalism, it is the denial of the original sin in a human beings. You see, this lack of humility, which is the lack of truth about ourselves, has enormous consequences. In times of Rousseau, we lived in this idea that there is no original sin, so there is no flaws inside people. Now we made a step forward, which is now we deny the existence of human nature. We're going, every year we go further and further in evil, in pride, I would say, in the absence of truth, the denial of basic truth. Then another aspect of humility is the awareness of our dignity. Humility is the habit of living in the truth, and the truth is that you have a dignity. What are the levels of this dignity? Well, you have philosophical level, which is the understanding that you are a spiritual being with a free will and a rational mind. This is great dignity. And people that don't believe in any God understand this. We are not chimpanzees. We are spiritual beings, and the existence of the spirit can be demonstrated philosophically. The ancient Greek believed in the spirit, and they explained the spirit through the simple operation of abstraction. If we can speak, if we can have notions, it's because we can abstract spirit from the materia. And if we can do this, it's because we have a spirit. Only spiritual beings can make abstractions, can get outside materia. You have to be spiritual. So if we can get outside materia, it means that we have a spirit inside. Because materia cannot get outside materia. Only spirit can get outside materia and produce notions, abstractions. From that tree, you come to the idea of tree. Well, in order to come from that tree to the idea of tree, you need to have a spirit. Animals don't have the idea of tree. They know only that tree where I do my stuff every day. Well, that tree. But a tree, they don't know what it is. They know that tree. They have no spirit. They cannot abstract from materia. So this is a very simple thing that can be philosophically demonstrated, that we have a specific dignity because we have a spirit. But then when we are Christians, we know more about this. Judeo-Christianity tells us that we have been created in the image of God. So we resemble God. It's quite a lot of stuff. And then the Christian tells us we've been redeemed in the blood of Jesus Christ. Wow! What a dignity. So there is a philosophical dignity that everybody can share. And there is a Judeo-Christian dignity that Jews and Christians and Muslims can share. And then there is a specifically Christian dignity that only Christian shares, but this dignity is the highest possible. We are children of God. And this is not a beautiful word, this is the truth. We've been redeemed in His blood. So we have to dream God's dreams. We have to behave as children of God, and we're free. We're freed from laws. Be perfect like your heavenly Father is perfect, tells us Jesus Christ. He tells us that perfection is to be like Him. It's not to observe laws. It's to be like Him. So the perfection is not the level of observation of laws, external laws. It's about being. It's about virtues. He freed us from laws. Or in other words, He told us that the accomplishment of the law is the virtue itself. This is a dignity, my friend. This is the highest point of human dignity. And this gives a lot in terms of humility because this is the truth. And then awareness of our talents. We have to be aware that we have talents. Not to recognize our talents, it is not an act of magnanimity. And it is not an act of humility. It is pusillanimity, ingratitude. It is ingratitude. Thomas of Aquinas says very clear about this. Not to be aware of the gift that we have, this is not humility. It is ingratitude. So we, my friends, don't have the right to be, to be ungrateful. Ungrateful. We have to be aware of our talents, and we have to work on them, and we have to multiply them. This is self-knowledge. So you see here that you cannot have self-knowledge if you don't have magnanimity. Because it's magnanimity who tells you about your dignity, about your talents. Someone that is not magnanimous is not interested in his own dignity and his own talents. So this is the beginning of magnanimity. So you see humility and magnanimity from a certain angle, it's the same virtue. From the angle of the awareness of the great things you have received, it's the same virtue. That's why we need to say people very often, you need to have the humility to acknowledge your talents. Please have the humility to acknowledge your talents. You have to make people understand it's an act of humility to acknowledge your talents, not an act of pride. Be humble enough to recognize your talents. It shocked people, When you say this, what's that? Be humble enough to acknowledge your talents. You show them that to acknowledge your talents, it's an act of humility, not only an act of magnanimity, and certainly not an act of pride, because it is an act of truth. Self-knowledge, this is the foundational virtue of all the virtues. Know thyself. We're used to say the ancient Greek. This is the beginning of philosophy. This is the beginning of wisdom. Knowing thyself. But humility is not only self-knowledge, it is also service. So you're humble when you serve. You're humble because you see, in the end of the day, you see God in people. That's why you serve. You serve because you're aware of a lot of things about the human being. You're aware of your createdness, aware of your flaws, but you're aware of your dignity. And you're aware that people on earth are children of God, and you want to serve them because you see God in them. So you serve. And this service is not a desire, it's an action that is repeated. And this action that is repeated creates a habit. It is the habit of serving others. And this is the top of humility. The top level of humility is service. And I repeat, because people like the word service, we have to tell them, look, service is not an emotion. Service is not an emotion. And service is not a desire. It's a habit. Which means, do you serve or don't you serve? But if you want to serve, it doesn't mean that you serve. To have a desire to serve doesn't mean that you're a servant. You're a servant when you practice service. So it's not easy to be a servant. You need to practice. It's a virtue. Virtue of people that are of service all the time. And this requires a lot of humility. But this is the top of the pyramid, and this is what we see in these examples of leadership I brought yesterday. And these people are servant, and they serve with magnanimity, and they are servant of humanity. So you follow me. This virtue of humility has two really dimensions, and one is self-knowledge, and the other one is service. So we have to know what you speak about when you speak about humility. Are you in the self-knowledge side or are you in the service side? Because each aspect of this humility has his specific laws, I would say. Yeah, so self-knowledge is the foundation of our life. It's the foundation of all the virtues. But the top of life is not self-knowledge, it's service. So the highest level of humility is really service, not self-knowledge. But without self-knowledge, it's impossible to serve the others because you don't understand why do you serve the others. If you have no vision of God present in the others, no vision of the human dignity, no vision of those great things, why would you serve the others? So the truth has to be here in order to serve, because we have to serve in the truth. You know, the French revolutionaries, they spoke about man. And in the name of man, they kill millions. The same as the Bolshevik. So these people, what's their problem? It is that they have no vision of man. That's why in the name of man, they kill man. For them, man is a chimpanzee. But they love to speak about man, and humanity. The word humanity is the most pronounced word in France. Humanity. But their vision of humanity is the bottom line. That's why in the name of humanity, they can kill, of course, 10 million people. It's not a problem. It's like killing chimpanzees. And the Bolshevik did exactly the same. The French revolutionaries, like the Bolshevik, they called themselves the top level of humanism. But their vision of the human being was the bottom line. That's why they did what they did. And so much blood was. You can serve only in the truth. Humanism is possible only in the truth, if we have a vision of what a human being is. If not, the word humanism is a fake, and it's very dangerous. These are conditions. Metaphysical humility, which is awareness of our createdness, allows us to see the presence of God in others in order to serve them with reverence. Every word here is very important. Through metaphysical humility, you see God's presence in people because God maintains everything in being. So He is present in us through being. So we see the presence of God in people. And then this helps us serve people with reverence because you see that God is present in those people. You are aware of this. You follow me? If there is a problem, just ask me. I know it's not so easy for the first time, but metaphysical humility is the humility of people who are aware of their own createdness. So they know they are created by God. They know God maintains them in being all the time. So they understand that it's the same thing for you. You are created by God, you maintain being by God all the time. So I have to see God in you. If God maintains you in being, He is present in you in a way or another. So I serve you with reverence. The second level is ontological humility, which is awareness of our dignity. This allows us to see the face of God in others so that we can serve them with love. So ontological humility gives us another indication. Through ontological humility, which is the awareness of a dignity of children of God, we don't see just God in others. We see His face. We see Jesus Christ in people. That's much more concrete than God. And that makes the possibility of serving people with love. To see God's face is not the same thing as to see God's presence. Then the third level is spiritual humility, which is awareness of our flaws. This makes us aware of the need to perfect ourselves in order to serve others effectively. You need to perfect yourself in order to serve others effectively when you're aware of your flaws, of your flaws. Sorry for the flaws, the flaws. It's not the same thing, I know. You have weaknesses, we have sins. When we're aware of that and we know we are of service, then we understand we have to improve ourselves. Self-knowledge tells you better work on your limitations and flaws if you want to be a good servant. Because we don't serve people with our flaws, we serve people with our strength and our capacities, not with our egotism. You follow me? So this is the third level of humility that gives you a lot in terms of service, because you understand, okay, I want to be a servant, but before being a servant, I'm going to improve a little bit myself, because I have problems. So if I don't improve myself, I will not serve well. So people that are sincere with themselves understand, okay, I want to be a servant, but I'm going to serve by helping myself first. And after I will help the others. And you help yourself when you work on your problems, when you work on your flaws, on your limitations, and you try to improve your life and multiply the virtues that you have. And then the fourth level is psychological, which is awareness of our talent. This awareness of our talent allows us to appreciate our talents in order to serve with magnanimity. You have to know what's your strength if you want to be a real servant, because you're going to serve with this strength. You have to know what's your talent. Many people come to you and say, I want to serve you. And then you say, okay, how are you going to serve me? Well, tell me how you want me to serve you. That's not realistic. They have to tell you, well, I can serve with that, that, and that. This is my power. This is my talent. This is who I am. These are the great things I can do for you. You cannot come to see someone and say, I want to serve you, if you don't know with what you're going to serve him. This is hypocrisy. This is feel-goodism. I feel good because I serve. You look for yourself. You're not looking for him. You're not looking to help him. You're looking to help yourself. So many people want to serve out of feel-goodism, the feedback, but they are not really interested in you. They are not really interested in service. They serve because they want to help themselves, because they want to feel good that they are, in the end of the day, capable of service. This is what they want. They don't want to serve. They want to feel good. It's a very different thing. Many people go to Africa to help the poor, not because they want to help the poor, but because they want to feel good helping the poor. It's a very different thing. The intention is absolutely different. There is no love there. It's egotism. It's egotism because they are looking at themselves. They do it for themselves, not for the poor. The intention is a very important thing. And here in this system of virtuous leadership, you see it perfectly. It's exactly what's the problem with people that look like servant, but in the end of the day, they are not servant at all. They are serving themselves. It is a self-service in the name of service to humanity. It's feel-goodism. Yeah, I'm convinced that someone who at least do something for the others, even if he doesn't do it for the others, but for him, in this action of service, he can discover certain things that he couldn't know before. You're right. But what I try to do is to show that we have to go further. We have to think, do I really do those things for me or for him? You have to ask yourself very often, because what's the problem with that? The problem is that when you don't get feedback, well, you stop serving. If you serve someone because you want to serve him, because you really want to serve him, because you love him, even if he doesn't want you to serve him, you still go on serving him. You know he doesn't want you to serve him. He doesn't want you to think about him. He wants you to go away and forget about him. And you still go on serving him. Why? Because you love him. But if you love feel-goodism, you will go away, of course, because you will not understand, what am I doing here? I'm serving him, and he doesn't understand that I'm serving him, and he doesn't want me to serve him. So what's the meaning of my presence around that guy? No feedback. The feedback is, in the end of the day, what you were looking for. That's the feel-goodism I'm mentioning. And this helps a lot of people understand. When the cross comes, when difficulties happen, then you understand if you're really serving, or if you are looking for yourself in the service. This is very clear. When it becomes difficult to serve people, do you go on serving them or not? If you stop, it's probably because your intentions were not pure. You were looking for yourself, for your self-satisfaction. And then we have the next step, which is the step of fraternal service, fraternal humility. Fraternal humility is a supreme humility. It is active service. But answering to the question that was asked 10 minutes ago, you see the steps. All the 4 steps we had before, these are conditions for active service. Serve them with reverence, serve them with love, serve effectively, serve with magnanimity. This requires that you practice the full level of humility. Then you serve in the truth. The truth about you, the truth about the others, and the truth about God. And this is real service. So there is there is a relationship between humility as self-knowledge and humility as service. There is an obvious relationship. And here you understand why the French revolutionaries and the Bolshevik had it wrong. Because they went directly to fraternal humility and they split on the 4 first steps. They split on them. And what was the result? Well, fraternal humility. 100 million people killed. Fratres, brothers, we love you all. But with the word brothers, we have in mind chimpanzees. And that's the result. Humanism. Humanism without truth about the human being. Humanism without God. This is what it is. And humanity has paid the hard price for not understanding these basic things. It's a lie. Humanism without truth it's a big lie. And it is full of awful consequences. That's why a beautiful thing about magnanimity and humility, it is that they are ideal of life. Because greatness is an ideal, and service is an ideal. But the 4 basic virtues, they are not ideals of life. They are instruments. You cannot base your life on prudence. It's ridiculous. What's your life about? Prudence. Stop kidding. What's your life about? Self-control. Well, you're just crazy, my friend. I have 3 bottles here around. Courage. Wow, you've seen too many movies. Well, this is not serious. I mean, these things are good. We need them. They are foundational. They are basics. But they are not life ideals. But this and that, they are life ideals. This is greatness and this is service. What's your life about? Greatness and service. Okay, I understand. What's your life about? Self-control. Stop kidding. You follow me? It's because the virtues of the heart define a whole state of mind. They picture the whole person. You have an idea of who is in front of you. When somebody tells you, look at my friend, he's very courageous. You say, well, good for him. But you don't know who this guy is. But if you tell me, look at my friend, she's magnanimous. I'll say, wow, she's magnanimous. I understand who she is. I understand what is this human being about. Her life is about greatness. I understand that person. That it's not enough to be on the right path. You have to be on the path of magnanimity. Magnanimity requires truth, so requires the right path. But it's not enough to educate people in goodness. We need to educate them in magnanimity, which is on the right path. Not everything is okay for you. What's okay for you on the right path, it is that which brings greatness to you. So you cannot be okay only with doing the right things. Those right things also have to be great for you. If not, you're going to be the small good one. The good, but the small. So it's possible to be good and small at the same time, because magnanimity comes after goodness. In children, when you tell them, don't do this because this is right, this is wrong, very often they say, wow, why? Why it's right? What is wrong? But if you tell them, don't do this because this is not what we are, well, they begin to think, who are we? You understand? Who are we? This is not the thing that we do in our family. Why? Who are we? Well, you give them a sense of personal dignity. And then they understand much better the meaning of their actions. So by educating just in right and wrong, you're not going very far, especially in the modern world. You have to educate very much in the magnanimity thing, which is who are we? You know, a child who says, we don't do this because I don't do those things because I am not the kind of person that does those things. He's free. And you can leave him alone. And when he's alone with his computer, you know what he's looking at, and you know what he's not looking at. And a child who knows, well, this is right and wrong, you don't know what he's going to do with his computer. But the child that knows we are not the kind of person that does those things, he is totally free. Because he does those things, there are certain things he doesn't do, not because it's forbidden, which is for him a little bit of a game, forbidden, not forbidden. It's because we are not the kind of people that do those things. I don't belong to those people who do those things. I am someone else. He has a sense of personal dignity. He's growing in magnanimity. It's not pride. It's dignity. And this boy, you can let him alone. You can be sure he will try to do his best. You see the importance of educating people in magnanimity. It creates very different human beings. It's not just about right and wrong. It's about being great or being small. And it has a strong impact on the way we move forward. It's a beautiful virtue, magnanimity. It's a beautiful thing. So the great people, they perceive in virtue not the essence of virtue. What is interesting for them, it is the greatness that is in each virtue. For instance, what do they want courage? Not for courage itself, but for the greatness that is involved in courage. What do they look for? Self-control. Not for self-control itself, not for the substance of self-control, but for the greatness that is included in self-control. Their mind is totally different than the mind of a small-minded person. And this mind is a prism through which he looks to reality. And he perceives reality from this point of view. And he interprets reality also through this prism. That's why it is an ideal of life. It's an ideal of perceiving reality and an ideal of action. It's a way of feeling, a way of thinking, a way of perceiving reality, and a way of doing things.